We've been away for a while, but we're back with yet another episode of Ask Us Anything. We got a whole bunch of great questions this week, which kind of reflects everyone's preoccupations. There are a couple of random questions, and then everything else falls under three distinct categories: Squid Game, James Bond, and the DCU.
Okay, here we go.
And I'm assuming it's because that's what's on everyone's minds right now. So, let's kick things off with one of the general questions first. At Travesty has a question on local movies. He asks, suddenly we've had a huge release of local movies during the Hollywood summer blockbuster season, in which it seems only Agent Ali 2 and Blood Brothers made good money, while the rest flopped. Was this a good idea, or should the release of local movies be better planned? I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, Bahir.
Do you want to go? Shall I go?
Okay. So, Agent Ali 2 and Blood Brothers were genuinely good movies. And so, we can understand why the public flocked to see them and why they made as much money as they did. And they both were good for different reasons, right? Blood Brothers was truly something revolutionary in the Malaysian scene with the way it was shot and lit and written and produced and all of that stuff. It was a new benchmark for the Malaysian action movie. Agent Ali has been good for a long time now, and because of the TV series and the first movie, they've kind of done things the old-fashioned Hollywood way, right? They kind of built a following, and they have a really big dedicated following. And so when Agent Ali 2 came out, even though it was right up against Kluang Man, Agent Ali 2 was the victor. Agent Ali made over 50 million at the box office, and Kluang Man kind of fizzled out and died. Now, the other great movie that came out was Mencari Ramli, which was something different in the Malaysian cinema sphere, and that too died a very quick death in the cinemas because nobody went to watch it. And it is a very good movie that was worth watching on the big screen because a lot of time and effort had gone into producing this thing, which very few Malaysian filmmakers do, right? Because period pieces are very difficult to do in Malaysia, and this one was produced incredibly well. But to answer your question, Travesty, you're absolutely right. I think there needs to be better planning with regards to when these movies get released, because that idea of, oh, it's counter programming doesn't necessarily work in our environment. In the US, sometimes there will be a big Avengers movie, and then there may be a small indie talkie as counter programming for all those people who aren't interested in watching a superhero summer blockbuster. In Malaysia, however, spend is limited as well. And so people really do make conscious decisions on how they're going to spend their money and what they're going to watch in the cinemas. And so, even in the local sphere, when it boiled down to Agent Ali 2 and Kluang Man, over the school holiday period, I think we know which movie that parents took their kids to see.
We probably will never know how this happened, only because there's a thing called Wajib Tayang in Malaysia, and Wajib Tayang is a process where you as a local film producer have to apply to get Wajib Tayang status. Wajib Tayang status will then give you potential perks. The cinema will have to screen your film in a minimum number of halls for a certain amount of time, etc., etc., etc. It means you spend more because you have to make more copies of the film to send to these multiple cinemas. Blah, 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 blah. But I think the other thing that people forget about Wajib Tayang is that Wajib Tayang dictates when your movies come out, I believe. At least this was the case the last time I was doing it. So you get into the Wajib Tayang program, the Wajib Tayang system algorithm person behind the desk will say, your movie comes out this date. So you have no control of the date. The fact that a lot of movies came out during blockbuster season, is it a Wajib Tayang algorithm problem? Is it a problem where the powers that be decided that they wanted to try and carve out for themselves a little bit of this blockbuster money? I don't know. Was it a bad idea? Probably. Even international distributors take into account what other international distributors have got coming out at a particular time. In a real sort of gentlemanly way, a lot of these studios tend to try and give each other about a week themselves. So,
which is what we're seeing right now. F1, 1 week later, Jurassic World Rebirth, another week after that, Superman.
yeah.
And then there is a 2-week grace period before Fantastic Four comes out. I mean, in between, there's Smurfs, but who gives a shit?
Instead of Marvel trying to beat Superman, or rather DC, at the cinemas, they gave Superman a 2-week window, because in their brain, in Marvel's accountants' brains, the audience that goes for Superman is the same audience that will want to come for Fantastic Four. So why split them up? Why fight over a 2-week period, 3-week period? Why fight for screens? Why fight for IMAX halls? Why do that? So give yourself the whole, right?
An ideal situation is the Barbenheimer one, where people end up watching both.
But even the Barbenheimer one, the reason it came out was because they were counter-programming. Both those films were counter-programming to each other, right?
2 completely different movies, you're right.
The only reason Barbenheimer happened was because the people made it happen. It wasn't a studio thing. It wasn't dreamed up. If it was dreamed up by a marketing company, then those guys deserve all the awards. But I think the idea is that the audience that would go for Oppenheimer may not necessarily go for Barbie, and vice versa. So the problem with what happened this particular Hollywood summer blockbuster season is that a lot of these movies came out at a time when there were Hollywood movies that were fighting for your dollar.
But also, I think it's important to note that a lot of Malaysian movies suffer from a lack of marketing, especially the smaller ones. So for a movie like Mencari Ramli, for example, I don't think Megat had much of a budget left over for marketing. Director Megat Shahrizal. And because of that, I think very few people actually knew about this movie. Sure, there was a billboard on the Federal Highway, but there was like one billboard on the Federal Highway, right? And that doesn't really mean much.
Even that billboard was a problem, because I think that billboard came out too early. That billboard came out maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks out.
Ages ago.
That means you spend all that money having your thing up over the course of 8 weeks, when actually you would have been better off targeting that on social media, targeting that on, radio, targeting that on even print. I think even print is an option. I think billboards are good for that 100+ ad.
I think it works to a certain extent, because I think it's just about letting people know what's out. And I say that because gone are the days where we just opened the same page in the newspaper to check what movies are out, and everyone does the same thing because everyone has access to the same newspapers. These days, not everyone is watching all of these channels or being fed the same information by the algorithm, and therefore, I know a lot of people who are like, oh wait, I saw a billboard on the highway, you mean Mission Impossible is out already? And so I think to create that awareness, the billboard does work to a certain extent. However, when it comes to a Malaysian movie, it's different when it's Fantastic Four, Mission Impossible, Superman, immediately recognizable brands. I think with a Malaysian movie, it requires a little more explanation, because the audience is already apprehensive about watching a local movie, and they need to be sold just that little bit more.
Yep, I agree.
And so I think there are plenty of factors as to why things kind of flopped this year. Kluang Man got mixed reviews. I didn't mind it as much as everyone else. I thought it delivered exactly what it promised. I don't know what people were expecting from a Kluang Man movie. But for me, I was like, yep, did what it said on the tin. Okay, well done.
And I think that is the problem with Kluang Man, in that there were probably multiple people coming into it with multiple expectations, right? People who were expecting the light and jovial tone of the series. There were probably people who came into it thinking that it was this dark, Batman-esque adventure thing that was supposed to be gritty and brutal, and didn't get that. And I think that is the problem with trying to relaunch a cartoon or relaunch a character or an IP that I dare say 75% of Malaysians don't know.
Or don't care about.
Or don't care about, more importantly.
Exactly. I think more people probably care about Darkwing Duck than they do about Kluang Man.
Oh, mate, I spent so much money on Darkwing Duck.
Fucking love Darkwing Duck. Anyway, plenty of factors, Travesty. And to answer your question, yes, I think given the uphill battle that local films face, their release dates should be better planned. That's one. Also, I genuinely believe that Finas and the powers that be should actually control how many local films are released in cinemas every year. I think it's too many. There was a time when it was even more. There was a time when it was like 80 movies. Now it's down to about 40 movies. I still think that's too many because the vast majority of those movies are terrible. But quality assessments aside, I don't think the market can handle it given people's apprehensions regarding local content.
There's a bigger battle here to be fought by Finas, which is the perception that all local movies are bad. I think once you can train audience members, once you can train, hell, I'll fucking say it. Once you can train English-speaking Malaysians to treat local movies with some respect's not the right word, but with less apprehension, to be more open-minded to them, I think then you'll probably be in a better place to release 40, 30 movies a year. Until then, no point.
Moving on,
at Jonathan BW Koo asks, with the success of F1 and Top Gun Maverick in 2022, is Joseph Kosinski sending a signal that there is a continuing interest in the classic summer blockbuster fare? I don't know if that's Joseph Kosinski's thing. I mean, I think if anything, Joseph Kosinski is putting his name up as the guy who can do classic summer blockbuster fare.
I think there's always been interest in it. I just think people haven't wanted to take the risk. Top Gun is an original property. I think even Top Gun Maverick can be considered an original property. It was a sequel, but it was a sequel 40 years later, right? Who gives a shit? Like, no one from that generation. It's your dad's sequel. And it's not catering to the Gen Zs or the Gen Alphas. So I don't consider that franchise fair.
I agree with you in a way, but I think the name Top Gun still has some cultural cachet.
Sure, but for the most part, I still think there's a lot of effort required in selling and marketing that movie.
Sure. Yes.
Unlike the next Avengers sequel, for example. But studios don't want to take a risk on original fare because they don't know how to sell it. And I'm blaming the studios for this as well. I mean, if you take something like Elio, which was a brilliant movie, and both audiences who watched it and critics agreed, it was one of those rare occasions where the scores for both were almost identical, and yet it totally bombed. I mean, for the moment, who knows? It may have a second life like with Elemental, but for the moment, it looks like a Pixar bomb because they had no idea how to sell this movie, and I thought the marketing for Elio was terrible. The same goes for a lot of original movies where studios and their agencies are unsure how to sell it to the audience and therefore don't want to take that risk. Now, if you ask me, Bahir, to rank the studios and pick who I think has done the best work this year, I think the answer will surprise you.
Okay, go on.
I think it's Warner Brothers. Despite everything Zaslav has done, this year, mind you, Companion, Mickey 17, Sinners, F1. Of the 9 movies I think they've released since January, they've released possibly the best original fare. Like, Mickey 17 is a risk. Sinners, which I think might be my favorite movie of the year so far, is a risk. A huge risk. Despite having Ryan Coogler's name on it, it is original fare. It is black blues vampire stuff. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And then F1, and sure, they had all these sponsorship deals and Apple was involved and all of that stuff, but an original summer blockbuster with Brad Pitt as its lead is still something of a rarity, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
The audience is there for it. I'm just not sure if the studios are happy to take that risk at the moment.
I'm wondering if there is an interesting correlation with those movies that you mentioned and the possibly slightly more manageable budgets that they came with, F1 aside.
F1 aside, of course.
F1 aside.
Mickey 17 had a huge budget because Bong Joon-ho went a bit nuts.
F1's budget was 200 to 300 million. Mickey 17 was 118. Sinners was 90 to 100. That's not terrible, you know.
It made bank at the box office because it blew up.
Compared to a traditional summer blockbuster, which the expectation is 200 to 300 mil. I mean, and to be fair, Sinners wasn't a summer blockbuster. But I think Jonathan's question here needs to be qualified, right? Because he says classic summer blockbuster fare. And for the last 15, 20 years, a summer blockbuster has been a superhero movie. But something like F1, something like Top Gun Maverick is a throwback to the older summer blockbuster fare that we recognize, that we remember.
Also because these are true 4-quadrant movies.
Yes.
The superhero movie, yes, it may make $1 billion, but that's because nerds are watching it over and over again. There are still some people who just dislike comic book fare. F1 isn't that. F1, despite being a sports movie about Formula One racing, I think sports movies have a wider appeal because of their universal themes.
I will say I do want to see more summer blockbuster fare.
Yeah.
In this form, this new IP, this fun time out at the cinema. I'm really getting tired of having my morality questioned and my humanity questioned and the bigger questions of like environmentalism and socialism. Fuck that. I just want to have fun, which is what I think F1 did. And that's what the summer blockbusters used to do very well. It's great timing, Jonathan, because this week Jaws is celebrating its 40th anniversary.
50th or 40th? Because Back to the Future celebrated 40th. I think Jaws is 50, dude.
Jaws was 50th anniversary. I apologize. But I think if anybody's really curious about summer blockbuster movies, I say go look for think pieces that were written about Jaws from 20, 30 years ago, because Jaws was the first summer movie. Up till that point, everybody were doing really serious Easy Rider style films. Bonnie and Clyde and all that really sort of heavy, dramatic fare. And then Jaws comes out and the kids went to see the movies over and over again. And then Star Wars comes out and the kids went out to see the movies over and over again. Look at what came out in the cinema the year before Jaws. There were a lot of films you will recognize. None of them you would consider to be summer blockbuster films.
At Kailash Laxman asks, so now that we're halfway through the year, what are the remaining movies you're most hyped for? Are there any award contenders you guys have picked out so far? Also, The Brutalist is finally out on Max or HBO Max. Can we get a review? I haven't been able to bring myself to watch The Brutalist yet because I need time. I need time to sit down and like focus. And the one thing I don't like doing is pausing and continuing the next day. I really feel like it pulls me out of a movie. And
Agreed.
The Brutalist is an almost 4-hour film and requires your full attention. So, Kailash, we will get you a review as soon as we find the time to watch it. But I do want to watch it. It's a glaring omission from last year's award contenders. Like, that's the one movie that I haven't watched yet.
Same, agreed.
As for the other part of your question, honestly, the movie I'm most hyped for this year is Superman, and it's coming out next week, so I'm very excited to see that. As for my award contender for this year, Sinners is going to be tough to beat. Like, Sinners for me was everything. It was action, it was intellectual, it kind of hit like all the 4 quadrants of my brain.
Right.
I was scared. Musically, I was stimulated. Intellectually, I was having a great time. All of this stuff was going on. And man, Sinners, that is one of my favorite movies of the year. Along with F1, but I know F1's never going to win any awards. F1 for me is like one of the best cinematic experiences of the year because I had such a great time at the movies.
I don't think I hold Sinners as highly as you do. Like, I had a lot of fun with it, but I mean, it's automatically going to be in my top 10 list. How high up that list in an order, I don't know. But I think the ones that I'm most thinking about at the moment, which I feel is how I gauge my best of list, is F1. is 28 Years Later. I really, 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 really like Killer of Killers. Because of Killer of Killers, I'm now hyped for the next Predator film. Like, I'm not a Predator guy, but after I saw Killer of Killers, I'm like, oh, snap. And of course, the Disney Plus film that was released a couple years ago. Prey, that's the one. So after Prey, after Killer of Killers, I'm now hyped for the next Predator. My best of list is still a little nebulous, I think. I think F1's there. I think 28 Years Later there. But I think I need to get through the next couple of months for me to sort of really lock down what I think it is. Because I've got high hopes for Superman. I got high hopes for Fantastic Four, Predator Badlands. I'm always waiting for the surprises.
Yes, same.
For me, Superboys of Malagon, that's on Amazon Prime now. That was a surprise for me, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And it is on my best of list. In fact, I would dare say Elio is up there as well for me.
Same.
Yeah.
It'll definitely make my list of my favorite movies of 2025.
You know what my biggest problem is with the Brutalist right now? I can't decide what snacks I want to get for that.
Oh, that is a very important
because
question
it's a
to answer.
4-hour fucking movie, right?
Yes.
Like, I want to know I've got my snacks ready. Do I want to do pizza? Do I want to do like some chips and some dip? Do I want some nachos? I don't know yet. And I think that is also holding me back. Because I think once I lock down on my snacks, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do 4 hours of The Brutalist.
That is an important factor. I totally agree. Yeah. It's too soon to tell also because a lot of these award contenders will come out in October, November, December, and we don't know what those movies are yet because a lot of them are going to be premiering at festivals throughout this year. The one movie that I really do want to watch is The Life of Chuck because I think that has potential. And I can't wait to watch that. And I wonder if that's going to be an awards contender. But ask us again in about 5 months, Kailash, and we might have a better answer for you.
No, you know what? Sorry, I'm going to jump in there, Uma. Ask us again in January.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you ask us in December, there's going to be some movie that's about to come out in the last 2 weeks of December or something, and we won't be able to get to it. Ask us again at the end of January, and we will probably give you a better list.
Okay, so the next batch of questions are Squid Game questions, and they're all kind of related or tied in to each other. But before we get into the meat of it, Bahir, following on from your snack situation, at My Tipsy Turvy asks, what kind of sotong dish is the best snack for a Squid Game binge? I mean, for me, it just has to be fried calamari. I feel like any other sotong dish is a bit too complex, requiring utensils.
Yeah. No, you know what? You're right.
So, something you can eat with your fingers, lah.
No, I think fried calamari is good. You don't want like a rice and sotong curry or sotong sambal.
If you get the
you know what
sotong
I'm
curry
saying?
or the grilled sotong.
Yeah. And I think you don't want like, I guess you could do that dried squid thing, but I'm not a fan of that.
Like the squid keropok almost.
Yeah. If anything, I don't know if I want to do a Squid Game binge.
Can I tell you the one thing I'm glad? I'm glad they didn't split season 3 into 2 parts, lah.
They can't lah. What else are they? Oh, to be fair, they're doing that with Stranger Things.
They're doing that with Sandman. They're doing that with Stranger Things.
Oh, Sandman split?
Sandman is split.
Fuck off.
I know, man. I know. They're just trying to stretch this shit out as long as humanly possible. But
just release it weekly.
Okay, so our Squid Game questions come from Brandon Ho Shengfen, I am Kenny Liu, Marcus Lee. They're all about the ending of Squid Game 3. What did we think of it and whether we had better ideas for an ending? There's a question about subtitles and what is lost because of the translation. And Marcus says he enjoyed watching it, but it just didn't have any impact, good or bad, in the end. We haven't recorded our full review of Squid Game yet, and we're going to get into some of that here, I presume. But I think both Bahir and I are with Marcus in that I was watching it and I'm like, yeah, this is Squid Game. The production value is still top notch. They've clearly spent a lot of money on this. The actors are fucking fantastic and the performances are great. I cannot nitpick those things. But everything else about season 3 just left me wanting.
Sorry, I'm just going to quickly go back and add an addendum there. The Korean performances were fantastic.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Of course, I am referring only to the Korean actors.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the VIP situation in a little bit. But on the whole, Bahir, and spoilers for those of you who haven't watched Squid Game 3, what did you think of the ending?
I thought there possibly was a better ending somewhere. I think the ending, and this is a word that you used, was a bit of a cop-out. I agree.
Like safe.
It's safe, easy, pick the word you want.
No, but also here's my problem with the ending. It's the same as season 1. The Squid Game continues. Yes, we know. So nothing has changed. And sure, maybe that might be your message that, you know, there will always be rich people and there will always be poor people, and rich people want to take advantage of the poor people and all of this stuff. And, you know, that is the cycle of life, etc., etc. But if you are doing fiction and if you are planning sequels and follow-ups, tell me something different, because you've built up all of this stuff only to end it the exact same way that you ended in season 1, kind of proving that you didn't need these additional 14 episodes.
Yeah.
And that was what made me so angry, because I was like, well, I kind of saw the fact that he was going to die because there was no other way out.
Yeah.
And then the morality and the message of it all ends up being exactly the same, which means I haven't learned anything new or discovered anything new throughout this entire process.
The third season, which I also sometimes call the second season, didn't give me anything new, right? I think that's kind of the problem. You started season 2 with bringing back a character from the first season. He's made his way back in. He's made a deal with the devil to come back in and take it down from the inside. And yet, at the end of it, it doesn't happen. And that's okay, but it doesn't happen in the worst way. It's an admission of defeat from your lead hero. Your lead hero can be beaten. Your lead hero can fall down in defeat. I think when your lead hero gives up, you are then left at the end of it all with questions that we have, which is, what was the point of any of that? You could have just left it at 1 and be done with it.
And don't get us wrong, we really enjoyed season 2. We thought it had some incredibly clever writing in taking its time to return to the island, in the way it executed the games and made even old games interesting again. And also reintroducing the frontman into the games, because that added such a fascinating dynamic. And then in season 3, all of that is kind of flitted away because all of the tension is removed.
Yeah.
And everything just becomes a bit of a slog. And then you introduce these VIPs, and I'm like, wait, you're Netflix. You've got tons of money. Why can't you hire good actors or better ADR? Like, what is happening? Why is this so bad? Why is this multi-million dollar production doing something so cheap?
I mean, we had that same comment with regards to the VIP in the first season, and we were okay with it.
Because they were in it for like 10 minutes.
Because in the first season, the VIPs were less of characters. They were literal caricatures of rich fuckfaces, right? And that was fine. And they were in it for very little, and that's okay. Suddenly they have a lot more lines now. They've got friendships between them. I'm watching them eat dinner, talking to each other. Just like, why are we here now? And you've got such bad performance. Why though?
The writing is so bad.
The writing is so bad.
Their delivery is bad. But the dialogue that they are delivering is just as bad. And then there is this whole element where they're commentating on what's happening in the games. And sure, we see that in Korean and Japanese reality shows where they have a group of commentators talking about what's happening in the reality show, etc., etc. And sure, that's all well and good when you're watching a reality TV show. However, when a VIP is sitting in a room and something happens and he goes, well, now this is getting interesting, and I'm watching the same thing going, no, that's not interesting at all. That's really dull. Just because you say it's interesting doesn't make it interesting, man. Show me something fucking interesting. I was just angry, like, because Squid Game 1 was great and took us all by surprise, and I was like, oh, Squid Game 2 is a shameless cash grab. There is no way they can make it good. And then Squid Game 2 came around, and I'm like, oh, wait, he's quite smart. He did something cool. But it's very clear that he only had enough coolness for 9 episodes. And then the brother, what if the fucking, like, that is terrible writing. You take a guy, you put him on a boat, he's looking for a fucking island, but he's just looking and looking and looking, and every time they cut back to the fucking boat, he's on the fucking boat and nothing. There's no progress to his story for almost 2 whole seasons. How is that good writing?
I would almost let all that pass.
Okay.
If he just landed it properly.
Agreed.
I would just go, oh, well, maybe he wanted to stretch it, so he added those things. But the ending was beautiful. In this instance, landing the ending has to be more than just our hero blowing up the island or our hero winning the money and taking them. I don't know what that ending is, but it needed to be better than what happened.
Sometimes I feel when things like this happen, it's very clear that the creator didn't quite know how to end it. And I say that because I've experienced it before. We all have with Battlestar Galactica. It's the same ending as Squid Game. Same fucking ending. Oh, look, it's a cycle. Everything happens again. No.
I quite enjoyed the Battlestar ending. I didn't mind it.
For me, I hate those sorts of endings.
Right. I think you have to be a much better writer to do that ending. Battlestar's ending was earned over the course of that final season. You cannot pull this ending in 6 episodes. When half the time you're running between our hero, a B character, and a fucking C plot that does nothing.
You cannot do it when you've already done it in season 1.
Agreed.
It's the same ending.
Yeah.
You ended the show. It was great. Anyway, we hope our little rant answers your question, guys. But thank you. As you can see, we feel very strongly about season 3 of Squid Game. Okay, Bahir, let's go talk about some James Bond.
James Bond. Tapao Z asks, who are our respective picks for the next James Bond? Also, Squid Game USA, yay or nay? Let's do the Squid Game one first.
At the moment, I'm leaning towards nay, despite having supposedly Fincher attached to it. Because I don't know how you're going to make it new, interesting, or exciting. If it's just going to be a rehash, but in America, we've already seen that with the reality TV show. Like, we know how Americans are going to behave. So unless you have something really fucking cool, I'm leaning towards nay.
I'm leaning yay only because David Fincher. And I think if anybody can come up with something cool, it will be David Fincher.
Okay, but I don't need Squid Game, but with Fincher's mood. I don't need a moody, Finchery Squid Game.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind it. Look, there's a lot of sort of Hollywood inside baseball in my next statement. But if Fincher actually does Squid Game and doesn't just attach his name to it.
Right.
If he writes the treatment, if he directs at least the first 4 episodes, I'm game. Again, if he wants to go down the dark, gloomy, gritty, dark David Fincher route, I'm like, sure, do that. Show me what you've got, David Fincher. And I'm curious to see. For me, it's more of a curiosity thing.
All right.
Like, if it was the Russos, if it was the Duffers, if it was any one of the other people that Netflix keeps throwing money at, I'd be less interested. But Fincher feels like not just grade A, he is platinum level, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy you didn't think he would do a spin-off of a Korean TV show.
Yeah.
James Bond.
I honestly can't say I have a pick. Like, in all honesty, you know who's my pick? My pick is Pierce Brosnan to do an old man Bond.
Oh, shit.
Like, fuck it. Fuck everything else. Like, forget rebooting it. Forget casting a young guy, whatever bullshit. Meh. Bring back Pierce Brosnan, aging Bond, pulled back into the field to deal with modern threats. Because all these young punks don't know what they're doing.
Like an old man Logan kind of thing.
Correct.
Yes.
That is my pick. But among all of the younger fellas who they have going, I'm like, you know what? They're actors. They'll figure it out.
I'll be honest. I'm less interested, and maybe this is because I'm old. I'm less interested in watching a young James Bond.
Actually, hold on. Before we answer that question.
Sorry. Okay.
just to ask the questions out there because we're actually responding to people's questions. Kevin.exif says, what do you think of the scoop of Tom Holland being one of Amazon's top 3 choices for James Bond alongside Jacob Elordi and Harris Dickinson? And then we've got a question from Jazzy Naj, your wife, who asks, since there are already questions on who you guys think the next James Bond should be, my question is, where would you guys like to go with James Bond? What direction would you guys like for it to take? And that was what you were going to say, Bahir. Like, you don't want to see a young James Bond. And you know what? I don't want to see a continuation type thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think the James Bond stories, the Daniel Craig stories, are an item on its own because they tried very hard to like link everything back together in the last one when they really didn't have to, but they did. But I like the standalone James Bond movies. I want them to return to that. Also, I don't think it's a good idea for the Tom Hollands or the Jacob Elordis or the Harris Dickinsons or the going for the person you think is kind of hot and has a following so they might bring audiences in. That was never what they did with James Bond. Remember, Daniel Craig was a fucking nobody when they cast him as James Bond and everyone was like, who is this guy? He's so ugly, he's so short, he's blonde, what is happening? Like, all of that criticism came out. But you know what? Craig was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yet again, they're actors. You give them a role, they research it, they practice, they rise to the occasion, right? Michael Keaton, best fucking Batman. So I don't care who they cast, but I just think it's a bad idea to go down the path of, oh, this person is hot and has a big following, so let's cast him. Also because the kind of people they've mentioned, the Tom Holland, the Harris Dickinson, the Jacob Elordis, are so in demand. I really want an actor who will be committed to Bond because God knows I want a Bond movie every 2 years.
I also think that I don't want a Pedro Pascal in 2025 situation. I don't want to see my James Bond also in another movie poster at the cinema. You know what I'm saying? I know it's weird, but like...
No, but that was the value of it, right?
That was the value of it. And I like that. I like that, oh, he's come back and he's Bond. Oh, every 2 years, 3 years, whatever, there's a new movie with this actor that I like. And it's James Bond. And I want it that way. I'm not a fan of the supposed Tom Holland, Jacob Elordi, Harris Dickinson thing. I think because they're too young. And my issue with that is driven purely by story. Because when you have someone that young, you're looking at potentially doing the...
learning the ropes.
Yeah. And the problem with that is, I've seen it already. I saw it in The Kingsman. And I'm done with it. I'm okay. I don't want to see James Bond fumble with his shoelaces, not able to run a mile with the British Secret Service. I don't care. I want to see James Bond doing James Bond things with James Bond toys. That's what I want. And the more I think about it, the more I want Pierce Brosnan to come back.
The only thing I'm excited about is Denis Villeneuve. And I'm excited about that because, okay, Dune movies aside, both great movies, but Dune movies aside, everything he has done has been fucking out there and different. Arrival, Sicario, Prisoners, like, it's all different. And yeah, even if you throw in Dune, sure, it's sci-fi like Blade Runner, but a different kind of sci-fi and yet a completely different movie. And so I think Denis Villeneuve has that range. And I just love him as a director and I can't wait to see what he brings to Bond, like even more than a Nolan.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And you know what? I think Nolan's beyond that now. I think Nolan's just like, I'm motherfucking Christopher Nolan. Everybody wants to work with me. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, and I think Christopher Nolan at this point is just doing passion project after passion project after passion project, right? I won't be surprised if after The Odyssey, he's like, I want to make a movie only for God to watch. And HBO is just going to throw money at him and just be like, that's fine. Put it in the vault. That's okay. We can do a tax write-off.
But yeah, so I'm excited about Denis Villeneuve. To answer your questions, I think both Bahir and I on the Pierce Brosnan page, Old Man Bond with Pierce Brosnan. But the one thing we don't want to see is James Bond Jr., the movie.
Yeah. Do not want that at all.
Our final two questions are about the DCU. Obviously, also on people's mind, because the first big thing to kick off the DCU, sure, we had Creature Commandos, but the first major cinematic project comes out next week, Superman, and that kicks off the DCU. First up, at Rabbit Hop asks, will there be a Batman movie under James Gunn's DCU? And actually, there is a definitive answer to that question now, Rabbit Hop. And the second question is from X-Ray and Drops, who asks, with Superman releasing soon, we gotta ask this question. If you could have a superpower, Bahir, what would it be? I've thought long and hard about mine. This is X-Ray and Drops' answer. And I basically want the power to manipulate atoms, like Atom Eve from Invincible, so that I don't have to pay for necessities like food. I love it. It is the most practical reason to have a superpower. You know what? I'm going to be like Star Trek. I'm just going to use atoms to generate whatever food I want.
That's a really good one too. Could you also generate atoms to lose weight?
I think you could, right? You could remove unnecessary fat atoms from your body.
Yeah.
So you could eat anything you want and then lose it.
And then convert it to heat or something.
To power your house.
To power my house.
There you go. Okay, wait. Rabbit Hop first.
Okay.
So, Matt Reeves posted on his Instagram a photo of the Batman 2 script, like the cover page. It was ready to go. And I think James Gunn was asked in one of the junket interviews, and he said he had received it by email, but he was on a flight and he was very tired and went to sleep, so he hadn't had a chance to read it yet. But it's in James Gunn's hands, and the reason it's taken this long is I think one of the things Gunn and Safran said about the DCU, and I think this is based on mistakes of the MCU, that they would not move forward with a movie unless the script was ready and the script was good. And I think that's why the Sergeant Rock project got cancelled. The Luca Guadagnino with Daniel Craig originally attached to star. I think that got cancelled because they felt that the script just wasn't there, so it was taken off the schedule. So, yes, I think we will get a Matt Reeves Batman, but James Gunn also said there is a Brave and the Bold Batman being worked on, so we may get multiple Batman movies in the James Gunn DCU.
Yeah.
Superpower, Bahir. Come on. I'm sure you have spent the last 40 years of your life thinking about this. Because I know I have.
Okay. You want me to go first or
You
do you
go
want to go
first.
first?
You go first.
I love traveling, but I hate traveling.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So, are we going teleportation?
Yes! That was my choice!
Yeah.
Same!
Yeah, teleportation.
Why sit on a flight for 12 hours?
My wife wants to travel more, and other than the fact that neither of us have the money for it, I just really hate the act of traveling.
Wait. Bahir, so your power, if you had power of teleportation,
sure.
Can you like touch someone and teleport them as well? Or is your wife on a 12-hour flight while you go there ahead?
We go together lah.
Okay.
Like
so your power can be transferred. Whoever is within your sphere lah.
Sphere or contact or whatever. Yeah, is that I think is the one I'd want.
Yeah. No, same. For me, it was either teleportation. I really enjoy the idea of time travel. Dangerous.
My issue with time travel is that I don't know if I want to put the butterfly effect theory to test. I don't know if I want to find out. You know what I'm saying? Because then I'm just going to constantly keep going back to the past, stopping myself from doing something.
Yes.
I don't want to get stuck in a Twilight Zone episode.
Yes.
And I think I suspect what will happen. So teleportation safe.
You're right. That was exactly my choice. I've always, even as a kid, when I was playing in the playground, when we would play superheroes, you know, some people have like, oh, I can shoot electricity out of my hands, like, you know, B-Man from Misfits of Science and all that shit.
You cannot hurt me. I'm invincible.
Correct.
That guy is the worst one to fight, by the way.
Yes.
Can I just say, that fucker is the worst one to fight? Because you're like, I throw stones at you. Like, no, I'm invincible. It doesn't hurt me.
And I'm like, how did you learn a
go home,
4-syllable word,
dinner,
asshole?
fucker.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always like, I teleport out of your electricity beams.
I never used to do that.
There you go, X-Ray and Drops. We're both teleporters. In many ways, a practical response like yourself.
It's practical. For me, it's the practicality.
Don't have to worry about traffic jam. Never late for anything.
Confirm.
You want to go to Disneyland tomorrow? Boom, you're there.
I would do the honorable thing and just like teleport to Anaheim, but then buy a ticket.
I just find myself inside Space Mountain.
Yeah, but then you see, the problem is then you don't know, like, are you going to teleport on the track? Are you going to get on the chair? It becomes a whole thing.
So
right?
I feel like if we had the power, Bahir, there has to be a logistical solution to figure out where we end up. So I don't know what that is as yet, but I think that was always the problem with teleporters, even in the comics. What if you end up inside a wall and then you die?
Like, there was that one rule, I can't remember which show it was that you must be able to see the place you're teleporting to, which I thought was quite an interesting thing. But it limits your range, lah.
Unless even if you see it in a photo, can lah. Or like if someone video calls you.
Yeah, I was going to say the video call thing, right? I get my friend in the US to video call me from the corner of Anaheim, then I just teleport there.
There we go.
I worked it out.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you so much for all of your questions. We hope we've answered them with some satisfaction. Keep them coming in. You know what to do. Reach out. On Instagram, we're at GogglerMY. You can also email your questions to us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. This has been another exciting episode of Ask Us Anything. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.